So I'm going to be previewing this A.J. Brown versus Stephon Gilmore matchup, and I think it should be a very interesting matchup. I'm going to break down all the strategies and what these guys should do. But I think that the elephant in the room is the fact that Stephon Gilmore just finished a game where he got beat pretty badly against Devontae Parker. I mean, he really did kind of lose his matchup in a huge way. I'm not going to put the blame on one guy because there were several guys that game that did not show up, but the reality is if Gilmore played like the true number one corner that he is in the game against the Dolphins, they don't have to play wildcard weekend. So that does have to be mentioned, and instead of just sort of beating him up, let's talk about what actually went wrong and maybe how the Titans could go about attacking that, and also maybe the adjustments that Gilmore should make. And so let's just start things off with this play. So it's going to be a one-on-one matchup, as you will see a lot this game. And what's going to happen is that Parker is running that route right there, just a simple go route. Nothing too fancy, and if you look at how far off that Gilmore is playing, this should be a great situation for him. Because Parker is running deep, and Gilmore is already deep, this should work out perfectly. But look at what happens right when the ball is snapped. If you notice Gilmore, he is looking up and looking towards Fitzpatrick right now. He wants to see where the ball is going to be thrown, and honestly, he's potentially hoping he can get a pick of some kind, which actually isn't a terrible thing to do because it is something he has done in the past against maybe lesser receiving cores, is that he's been able to look around and then see that the throw is getting thrown to someone else. He's able to jump that route and get an interception, or at least run over and knock the ball away. So that's what he's doing here, but really he can't do that against a guy like Devontae Parker. Parker is just too good because he gives up that step, but then Parker's just able to run over him and make the catch. And so I think that was actually, it was one of the very first plays that was thrown to Parker. I think that was probably just a wake-up call for Gilmore of, oh, okay, maybe I'm going up against tougher competition than I realized. So on that play, I wouldn't actually be too worried in the future, and I actually think that that's almost a good thing that happened to Gilmore in Week 17 as opposed to the postseason. It's a good wake-up call right now to realize, hey, you're not a superhero. Sometimes when you're going up against tough competition, like he will be doing against A.J. Brown, you have to be a little bit more careful, and that's what he'll have to do. But even with that, I do think that there are just some ways that he just got beat physically. Like on this one, it's going to be just a one-on-one matchup where Gilmore is going to be playing. He's going to try to play press coverage right here. That's where the matchup is. And take a look at what happens right when this ball is snapped. So first things first, Parker is going to step as though he's going to the outside. So he's actually faking here. He's not going to be running to the outside right here. And if you look at Gilmore, he actually is playing a little bit pretty tight right now. This is something that he does do where he'll play very tight and he'll basically not really give up that much space over the middle, which I would actually feel more comfortable if he did basically stay another yard further towards the middle, because I think he can close well enough that if someone did try to run an out route, he would be able to run over and knock the ball away. But again, he gets interceptions that way because when people do run the out route, that extra step allows him to get the interception instead of the incompletion, and obviously there's a huge swing in getting an interception than incompletion. And since Parker is faking, this now means that when he cuts to the middle, now he is pretty easily able to get open. Now for Gilmore here, he pretty much has no chance but to just turn his hips and just run, and hopefully he can knock the ball away. He's great at closing, so hopefully this will come into play right now because he's going to have to. He has no real choice but to turn the hips, turn his head around, and then try to hope that he can knock the ball away. However, there is one last problem. This is not going to be a route cutting in either. He then fakes back to the outside, just gets wide open. Because Gilmore had to turn his head around, he couldn't have the quick reaction time. And that's just a smart play call by Brian Flores and the Miami Dolphins coaching staff, and really well executed by Parker. That's just realizing who you're going up against and finding a way to beat him. Gilmore likes to play a little bit tight, so if he's playing tight like that, then take advantage of it by doing something like that. A little double move, get him to go to the inside, and then cut back to the outside, and you can get wide open. Really just a smart play call of understanding your competition, and I do think that Gilmore, in a sense, okay, he's going to have to learn a little bit from this game. This was definitely a wake-up call. Because then at a certain point, he said, okay, I'm going to stop playing so much press coverage, but when you stop playing press coverage, then something like this can happen where that's where the matchup is, and it's just going to be a quick slant route, and Gilmore really isn't going to have a chance on this one. Now, granted, this is zone instead of man, so usually you don't play press coverage in zone, but either way, if you look right after the ball is snapped, Gilmore is definitely giving up a lot more space than he typically likes to, and because of that, it's just easily able to be a completion just like that. Even though Gilmore closes so well, he's just not going to be able to make that play, and that's kind of what the Dolphins were able to do. They knew his strengths, and they sort of used his strengths against him, And then also, because of that, he had to mix things up and change things, but now he's playing in a position that he's not used to playing in, which is just difficult. And so for Tennessee, I fully expect them to try to implement a very similar game plan. And quite frankly, I can see them pulling that kind of thing off. Like, let's just take this play, for example. So it's going to be a one-on-one matchup, and that's going to be Brown's route. Pretty good route against this type of coverage. Not a great one, actually, because there is going to be a safety who's going to crash in and take away the middle of the field, but it at least could get open at a certain point. What I'm trying to say is it's good against man coverage, but the problem is since it's the cover one robber, a safety is going to cover the middle of the field, so it will get open, but it will take a while to get open just because of the coverage. But anyways, take a look at how Brown goes about attacking this. First, he's going to basically just initiate the contact right off the bat. This I find very interesting because Gilmore is a guy who likes to play tight coverage, and A.J. Brown is totally okay with having someone play tight coverage against him because he's a physical guy. The size difference actually is kind of interesting because they're both pretty much the same height. They're both 6'1", but A.J. Brown has 40 pounds on Gilmore, so I definitely think Gilmore could maybe get pushed around a little bit, but at the same time, he doesn't really get pushed around too much, so it'll be interesting to see if he does that there. But either way, because Brown is so quick, he's able to run up to the top half of the screen, just get wide open and make the grab, and then he actually breaks free and gets all the way to the end zone for a touchdown. Admittedly, this is week 17 against the Texans backups, so it's kind of a little bit of a moot point, but I just think that, first off, his initial acceleration was so impressive, and then the way he was able to finish is very impressive, and so that's kind of what Gilmore is going to be going up against. Really, it's that first boost. It's that first burst of speed is what makes him such an effective player because you really can't afford to play soft against him. Like on this one, it's going to be a cover 4 zone, and that's going to be his route. And again, take a look at how quickly he runs the first portion of his route. He's so quick, he accelerates like a running back, he really does. And now at this point, if you notice, I mean, there is a safety who is playing deep, obviously, that's what you're supposed to do in this situation. But, you know, it is quarters coverage, you could play a little bit more aggressive if you wanted to. But also, if you look at the linebackers, they're also pretty far in. I think, you know, Mariota actually had to come in for a certain portion of this game, and so I think they were just expecting a run here since it's Mariota, but because that didn't happen, Brown is able to cut in, get wide open, and it leads to a completion. So for Gilmore, you know, you're going to be in a bad spot if you cannot find a way to stop A.J. Brown when playing tight coverage, because you can't play off of him. You have to play tight coverage. But Brown is the kind of guy who can beat you when you're in press, like on this one. That's where he is on the screen, and that's going to be his route. So again, relatively simple, but watch what he's going to do. It's very unique how he attacks him here. He's going to take a step to the right, but then he's going to basically just initiate a contact just like that. So because of that, he is going to easily be able to get by to the bottom portion of the screen. So his opposing corner has no choice now but to turn his head around. Brown isn't actually able to hang on and make this grab, but it's a good route ran right there to basically force the opposing corner to turn his head around. Admittedly, I mean, Gilmore is one of the best in the business at getting his head turned back around, but really, I mean, if you can get his head turned around, if you can get him to move his hips, and also if you can just get him to play further off, then the Patriots are going to be in trouble. However, I think that if A.J. Brown struggles to get him to move his hips back and forth like we saw Devontae Parker be able to do, that's when you could be in a little bit of trouble. Because Gilmore is the type of guy who is great when it's tight coverage. He's great when he's in the area, but if you can gain some separation, you can gain a lot of separation. That's kind of the reality of what's going on against Gilmore. So personally, I do think A.J. Brown has the physical tools to go up against somebody like a Stephon Gilmore. I think that he should be practicing very hard this week because he's probably going to have to be playing very different to how he usually does because he's going up against a very unique corner in Gilmore. But if he can do this, and if the Titans can outsmart Gilmore, they could be in great shape. But you also know, as much as the Titans are going to be in the film room watching every little thing that Gilmore did, Gilmore is also going to be trying just as hard and probably even harder because he doesn't want to get embarrassed again. I mean, nobody feels worse about his performance than Gilmore. You know it. I mean, the guy's a gamer, obviously, one of the best players in the league. I don't take his bad performance really too much against him, but, you know, I mean, he's going to have to bounce back. And honestly, this could end up being the best thing to happen to the Patriots, is Gilmore getting exposed week 17, so that way he can work on fixing his flaws, as opposed to if somebody figured out his flaws in a playoff game where maybe they could have gone just one and done, which is definitely not something that they want. Of course, I think the real best case scenario would have been if this happened, but also the Patriots still hung on to win. But, that didn't happen. So now you're going to have to win 4 straight games. We'll see if New England can pull it off, but it is going to be difficult. It definitely is. However, at the same time, you don't have to worry about winning 4 in a row right now. You just have to beat Tennessee. Tennessee's a good team. This is a very close to even matchup, I think, but it could go either way, and it'll be fun to see what happens. So, yeah, that's what I think of this upcoming matchup. That's how I think that the Titans should attack the Patriots, and also that's what I think the Patriots should do, what Gilmore should do to try to realize, okay, maybe play a little bit off if I have to, but hopefully just make sure I don't make those small little mistakes that I have been making. And obviously I can't play too far off because then I'll just get destroyed by A.J. Brown. He's so good at a corner who isn't playing press, so you almost have to play press against him, which is tough against a guy who is a lot bigger than you, but sometimes that's what you gotta do. But yeah, that's just my opinion. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and as always, thanks for watching.